And we are back. Welcome everybody to another episode of the Channel 135 podcast. This is a show we talk about our favorite things in life, movies, TV shows, and pop culture. I'm your host, Cams. This podcast is brought to you by the WesWes Network. It's brought to you by WesWesNet.com. I'm here with the brothers from the 135 Footy Show, our NRL podcast that comes out every week. We got coming in from Queensland. We got Simon. What's up, bro?
Hello, boys. Yeah, good, bro. Good to be here, man.
Good to have you on. Good to have you on. And we got the brother, Bob. What's up, man?
Aloha, brothers. How are we tonight? Ready
Mahalo.
for
Mahalo.
another review, brother. Ready for another review.
Yeah. Man, thanks for coming, boys. We are here to talk about Chief of War. We've been reviewing every episode that's been coming out. The latest episode is episode 4 that came out last Friday. And we will review that. Before that, we'll do the spoilers. But, man, I just want to touch on, before we jump on the mics, talking about our kids and that. I just thought of something we could, just break the ice on this podcast. Is there any movies out there you would want to watch with your kids? Like a film you enjoyed back when we were young that you would want to show your kids? So, have you, Bob?
Yeah, I mentioned Kindergarten Cop. Well, 2 spring to mind for me that I really enjoyed that I think would be kid-friendly. One's Kindergarten Cop. The other one's probably not so kid-friendly. It's Aliens. I really enjoyed Aliens. So sci-fi, you know. But, you know, one of the other things that your premise was that your kids will probably think was boring and wouldn't want to watch it with you. And that's probably true of both those movies. They'll probably look and see Arnold and think, this guy is not a teacher. And this is not even funny. The jokes are probably a bit dated. Same with Aliens. The technology is not as flash. It just looks like rubbish. And that whole unit that I thought was kick-ass and Aliens, they probably think, dumb. These guys are dumb. Yeah, so those my 2, bro. Kindergarten Cop, Aliens. Watch
Aliens is a good one. Aliens is a good one, eh? Like you said, the man's got the Marines, it's got the Army kind of vibes. You know, you got the monsters there, and it's not really scary like the first Aliens, more like a horror, science fiction horror. But the James Cameron one, that's the action one, eh? So you think the kids will be into that kind of stuff, but yeah, I'll probably try that on my kids, see if they're into it. But I'll come to you, Si.
Oh, solid heaps, bro. Man, we were kind of spoiled. Hey, if you think back, Goonies. My kids watched Goonies. They've actually enjoyed that. But I think I remember a couple of school holidays ago, trying to get them into Princess Bride, and Sole. Not even, you know, when Fred Savage is in the file. The grandpa still hasn't even finished the first page, and my son was like, this is stink. I don't know. I think that's more to do with kids' attention span these days. You know, you've got like 30 seconds to grab your kid's attention with a movie these days. But bro, Back to the Future, all the Back to the Futures. Man, Labyrinth was a cool one. I don't know how. I haven't shown them Labyrinth, but I don't know how the characters would stand up. You don't see many of that puppetry stuff, eh? Like, you know, all that Muppet Show, Elf kind of stuff, how they would react to that. But so many, bro, and these are just like movies in the family section. But if you're like I was, like most Samoans, so it doesn't matter how old you are, you watch them all, bro. All the Arnold, all the Akakalakes. Actually, I would really like to show my kids, Kung Fu Kids, see how that stacks up. But yeah, I don't know about the stunts. But yeah, a lot, bro. But I don't know, bro. I don't know, back in the 80s and 90s for us, I guess it was like maybe our parents introducing us a film from the 50s or 60s. We'll be like, stink. Yeah, there's a couple there that are that intergenerational, like Goonies, always. Anytime you just chuck it in. What is it? Which not really family. Oh yeah, family, but it's more of a traditional Christmas movie, Home Alone, bro. That hits any kids, grandkids, past and present. Yeah, those are my little go-tos.
It's all the action films, eh? But you're right, man. If there's no action in the first 5 minutes of the film, or even when the credits are rolling, there's no action straight after that, then they're not going to be interested. Like, boring. But for me, man, I try to introduce my kids to Star Wars. Like now I'm a big Star Wars fan. But I thought, like, with all the Star Wars stuff that's out now, like the Mandalorian and all that kind of stuff, even that my kids aren't into like watching the current stuff. But I tried to get them when they're younger. I tried to get them into Star Wars and Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, but they weren't even interested. They're like, stink, or they'll just get off the couch and do something else halfway through the film, or not even halfway. So nah, that was a fail. But you know, it's something that for me, before I had my kids, just thinking in my mind, man, I want to sit down with my kids and watch the movies I used to love when I was a kid. And when it happens, it doesn't really happen that way. So it's like fail. But nah. All right, boys. Yeah, man, we'll get into it. So we're going to talk about Chief of War, episode 4. But before we get into that, I'm going to do the channel 1 through 5 recap.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
All right, here we go. Chief of War, episode 4, City of Flowers, part 2, directed by Anders Enstrom, written by Thomas Sabet, Jason Momoa, and Doug Young. With the death of King Kalani or Pu'u, his son Kiowa takes the throne, but the leader over military matters is Kamehameha. He's designated as the god of war based on the king's strategic judgment. Kiowa represents this, viewing it as a theft to his birthright. He knocks out one of his own teeth to symbolize the declaration of war against his cousin. Meanwhile, King Kahekili of Maui rallies his war chiefs to mount a conquest of Hawaii. He believes under the prophecy that only his bloodline should unify the islands, even if it means annihilating rival royal lines. Despite some of his chiefs' hesitation, his bloodlust and vision of dominance drive him forward. At home, Kahahamanu is grappling her own role as a wife in a patriarchal society. Her husband's advisor, John Young, insists on traditional submission. Husband is the head of the wife. Yet, Kahahamanu refuses to remain silent. She encourages Kamehameha, if the gods are silent, trust your own judgment. Inspired, he decides not to strike preemptively, but vows to defend decisively if provoked. In Zamboanga, Kayana pursues his missing friend, Tony. He encounters the horror of enslaved women, children, and infants locked in cages. Refusing to abandon Tony or the captors, Kayana attacks a warehouse, frees the prisoners, and sets the structure ablaze. He rescues Tony, and they reach the ship just as it sets sail. Back home, Kayana's wife, Kupohi, and his brother, Namake, grow close through shared grief. And then they get it on as the credits close the episode. And that was your channel 1 through 5 recap. Man, interesting episode, especially that last bit at the end there. But I'll come to you first, Simon. What was your first thoughts of this episode?
Bro, I loved it. There was elements of being a Samoan that I could relate to. There's also elements of being a film buff that was, you know, the action-packed part of the episodes that I can relate to. And it's just elements as a Polynesian Pacific Islander, you know, like we all are, growing up in this Palangi world, having that thirst for history and knowledge and what these Hawaiians, what life was like in the 1700s, which is, you know, not too many generations ago, eh? So, man, every episode, although not being action buff, not as much warfare, and there's probably a lot to come, really. In that aspect, it was probably a setting up of the warfare to come, with the crowning of Kamehameha and what Guyana's been up to, what he's going to bring, the Palangi guns. But I enjoyed a lot of the, and all 4 episodes, I enjoy a lot of the cultural stuff that I hope that they'll bring. Stuff in between, stuff that goes on in everyday life. The opening scene, bro, really hit me. Because with the camera's following one of these guys, one of the men running through all this terrain, with the news of the death. One of the chiefs, old Cliff Curtis's dad, to tell Kamehameha, what's happened, and it takes me back to I never met my grandma on my dad's side, my dad's mum, but she passed away not in her village, bro. And so the message to get back to my dad's village bestowed on exactly the same way, bro. One of the men running fucking miles to deliver a message in a portal and that. So yeah, there were elements in there that it's really cool because us as Samoans we can relate to. The action part was sick, or we'll go on to my favorite part later. But yeah, also not as hard hitting as episode 1, but again, like 2, 3, 4, setting up for some big shit that's happening, some big storylines.
Yeah, this episode was titled City of Flowers Part 2. So it's sort of wrapped up what we saw last episode. Huh? Like last episode, they were having these meetings. Kayana and the Hawaiian woman that's there making a deal. So we know what they were going to do. This episode showed us the aftermath of that. Like that, it's the action what they were talking about the last episode, and then the story of Kamehameha, like more of his side of the story. So we saw the last episode how we're introduced to the king who's now passed away. So we saw those 3 characters: the king, Cliff Curtis's character, Kiowa, and Kamehameha. We saw where they stood in that conversation, right? And then in this episode, we see the effects of that conversation after the king has passed away. So yeah, good wrap up of those 2 episodes with part 1 and part 2. How about you, Bob? How'd you see this episode on episode 4?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was good. It was good to see sort of wrapping up what Jason Momoa's character Guyana was doing when he's been away from Hawaii. But I always like it when they go back to Hawaii and show us what's happening over there, because for Guyana's character, he's been away from Hawaii so long that he's still focused on Kahekili, right? That's the last thing he remembers when he left Hawaii. He needs to get all these guns so he can go back and take Kahekili out. But there's all sorts of stuff happening back home in the time that he's been gone. There's the Kahekili stuff, but now in Hawaii you've got this it's looking like gonna be a civil war after that that King Kalani Opu'u dies, Cliff Curtis's old man. So there's that internal conflict that's happening back in Hawaii. And that was probably my favorite scene, where that succession of the king happens. We saw in the previous episode where he was asking Kamehameha what he was going to do. Should they go into war, or should conflict happen with Kahekili? And he answers him, and then Cliff Curtis answers back. And there was that sort of tension that was set up from the previous episode, where Cliff Curtis is like, hey, why is my dad asking him these questions when I've already answered him? And then even though Kamehameha tries to give him respect back by saying, after you die, your son Gilwa's going to be the new king. And he's like, yes, just to placate him. But the dad then sort of bums Cliff Curtis out by doing that. Oh, well, he's not the king now, so I want to hear what your answer is, right? And so Cliff Curtis is going, hey. And so now we've got the king dying, as I talked about with that first scene where his death's been announced. He's got to go now because Cliff Curtis, Gilwa, he's assumed the role. He's ascended into the role of king from his dad. But, in those Hawaiian cultures, we've got these priests, right? These priests or these tohunga or that are there giving out and sort of relaying what the king's final wishes were, and they've got those tiki or those statues of the gods, and that's where that conflict sort of happens, because Cliff Curtis is like, yeah, I'm going to get the god of war. He gets like whatever the first god is that looks after politics and all that sort of stuff, and he's like, oh, okay, yeah, now it's time to god of war. That's what I really want. This goes to Kamehameha. And then he takes it, and then that conflict happens, and it's like, oh shit, this is pretty deep. And Cliff is full of words, full of, hey man, I'm the successor. You even said when my dad was here that I'm going to be the one that take over, so give me that thing. He's like, nah, I'm going to respect your dad's wishes. I love them too. And then there's scene where Cliff Cooties his tooth out, right? To finally, like, he's the man. I'm the real god of war. You know? Like, to show that, I was like, suddenly, and this is where that whole sort of, where we saw the wisdom and the strength of Kamehameha in the episode 3. And now we see the restraint and the real regalness of, like, proper true royalty, right? Because he could have, like, confronted him there and then, but he was like, I'm just going to respectfully, it's a time of mourning now, your dad's. And then Cliff Kids like, nah, yeah, I finished my mourning. Let's go get ready for war. I was like, so finally my Kamehameha is just like regal in every way. He's gone off to sort of have a real deep think about it, to not just jeopardize the position of his people right then and there. And so you've got all of that stuff happening in Hawaii while Jason Momoa is off trying to sort all that other stuff out. So it was really good. Stace talks about pacing and how he thinks it might be going a bit too fast. But I like this episode where it kind of fleshed out over, maybe it was a shorter period. We've had the time skip, so now we're doing these episodes have a bit more sort of longer, purposeful storytelling. It's not just in Alaska, shoot this thing. Now we're back on the boat, heading off to Philippines. There's all that quick stuff happening. Now it's a real, let's tell a bit of a story about what Jason Momoa's doing. Go rescue your friend, hate on all those slave trading guys and fussy everyone else. And then you've got all the story happening back in Hawaii where the internal conflict's happening. Your brothers and your wife are still grieving you, don't know what's happening, but they're going to move on now, and what that's all going to sort of play out in the remaining episodes. Because, there's going to be some sort of conflict with that whole end scene where his wife's now hooking up with his brother. So it's like, it's more layers to come in the next episodes. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a really good episode, I thought.
And was it episode 3? Yeah, it was episode 3. You could see that in his eyes when Keoa's dying dad, Dali, the chief, calls for Kamehameha to come, and how he asked for his opinion. You could just tell there was that look that Uncle Bully was giving Kamehameha was like, he wasn't quite on the same level. He was, you could see that you could tell that he was jealous that he was even, he's thinking, fuck, you ain't even on my same level. You ain't in fucking bloodline. You know what I mean? And then so we see his real instincts come out when he's got the power now, eh?
Mm.
And then we see the revelation, how his dad, and his dad could tell, bro. And then Bob just touched on it. There's a page right out of Gladiators where the next in line is a gifts. He doesn't have it, just because you're in a position of power, the next one's a come, but you ain't got it to lead. He given him his true right, his true right to be the king, but he ain't given him the power, the real power, the military power, to be the chief of war. And I don't know anything about Kamehameha. Only just the name, and I just know the general info that's out there that this guy was one of the one Ali'i that combined all the chiefs, right? So I kind of know that he's gonna be the fucking motherfucker by the end of this all shit that happens. But it was just interesting to see his rise, or not the start of his rise, but because it just seems like he's not that lineage, but that power was bestowed on him from his uncle, and his uncle could see, and you almost see the Lokoleanga and Cliff Curtis like, oh, you're the bastard, my bastard cousin, blah blah blah. And then that scene, so what I got out of it was the revelation of another power-hungry chief that needs to be killed off, just like Tim. So Jake's the power-hungry, thirsty Ali'i who using the prophecy and using religion for his own, and the scene don't want to harp on, but the scene earlier where Kahekili, played by Tim Morrison, is doing his mean ass speech, and then there's one guy who dares to question him. How can this be the prophecy when you're getting rid of all the bloodline? Hey, we see Uncle Bully doing the same thing. Apologies to our listeners. Uncle Bully's quick, but quick to Pakeua, Cliff Curtis. We see the same thing. As soon as Kamalo gets the power, he's thinking colonialism. He's thinking take over for his own personal greed. So I can see already that we're setting up the villain. We've got two villains and we've got two baby faces, two fucking superheroes. One Kayana, who's got Kili in the back of his mind, and now we've got Kamehameha, who Bob alluded to was much more kind of not laid back, but measured. But we can tell he's a mean motherfucker because he's fucking carrying a big ass boulder underneath the water. So this is a guy who's got a quiet confidence. He ain't scared of Uncle Bully pulling out his nifo. That was more like an Into the Dragon scene, like, balls don't hit back kind of thing. You know, it's like, it didn't impress no one, bro. I love it, bro. It's setting shit up, man, for some blood and guts to come.
Yeah, you mentioned that loyalist for Tim, like he questioned me, like, man, I thought, yeah, man, your prophecy is different to the prophecy that we were talking about. But there was another guy on Kaiua, one of his loyalists. He stopped him, said, "Hey, your dad gave it to Kamehameha, so if you take it back, everyone's gonna like, hey, this guy's all eats." So the same thing. So I think when your loyalist starts to question you as a king, you have to know something's wrong, man. Like his speech to his men, like, I'm gonna kill everyone here. There should be my bloodline. I was like, so this guy, man. Hey, number
he's
one.
Also got that tattoo, like that Two-Face tattoo style, where it's that scene where he just turns to the camera and you just see the darkness with that tribal tattoo on the half of his face.
Yeah,
makes him look mean.
Pretty badass villain, eh?
I think that just goes to reinforce the fact that Tim is such a badass character, but also that he's not conquering and then achieving the prophecy. Like, there's no unification here. He's achieving it through fear, and even his like loyal warriors are like, Sole, are we doing it right? We're erasing these other chiefly royal bloodlines that have been around for thousands of years in Hawaii, and now the only bloodline is the bloodline of the chief of lightning or whatever, and even his son, like that, when he says that, and then his son tells everyone to sort of get out, your king's spoken. So then he's sort of eyeballing his dad, like, suddenly, if you go down, I'm gonna go down with you too. Like, these guys ain't gonna leave me alive if they hate on you and then sort of decide to mutiny against the king or whatever it's called. It's not mutiny. There's some ships. What's it called in? I can't remember what it's called in a kingdom. But yeah, his son's even sort of now got those doubtful looks that he's looking at Tim, and you saw that in the last episode. So it's like, it'll be real interesting to see what happens in that dynamic between the son and his dad. It kind of gives you that vibe of the son knows that this is wrong. Maybe he's gonna ally against his father. I don't know, because I don't know the history, and I don't know any spoilers either. So if that's actually what happened, damn, good story writing. But yeah, it sets it up for good episodes to come.
So after Kamehameha has that sort of confrontation with his cousin, and the line is drawn now, so he retreats back to his village, and he's sort of stressed out. He's like thinking what to do because the God of War hasn't spoken. That was a big thing in the episode. The God of War has to speak, but he hasn't spoken, so he's trying to figure out what to do, what the next move is. He gets advice from his father-in-law, and he sort of dismisses him. He doesn't agree with what he thinks. So he's sort of like in a stalemate kind of place. He doesn't really know what to do. So he finally gets advice from his wife.
The one where Kahumanu, who's some Chagan as well,
Mm.
gives him a bit of advice. Hey, is that her, that one?
Yeah.
It is, eh? Yeah, because we kind of know that eventually he was going to fight back. But you know what, bro? If I want to just change text, I find it interesting. They call them like beachcombers, or his name's John, the Baling guy that's washed up, and then all of a sudden everyone's got fucking good
John
English.
Young.
He's been in there for 1 year. Yeah, I find it that whole that it's given her a bit more I don't know, like universal wisdom, the interactions she's having with the Balangi, especially where he's telling her about, he's traveled the world a lot, and women are, what do you call it, like subservient to men in nearly every single culture around the world. Where, I find that very interesting, because the very little that I've read, like women in Pacific Island culture kind of more than subservient. You know what I mean? Not every nguu will have them as chiefs. Some do, but I find them a lot more giving in society in island cultures than Western. And so we see that with her communications to her partner, to Kamehameha, especially on that mountain when he's in, because really, if that was a Palangi guy in the 1700s, and I'm generalizing, the 1700s, and the missus spoke up, you must do this, he'd be like, how dare you speak to me? Go and ponga kipoki and do me a ipuki. That kind of thought process. Whereas Kamehameha is giving her the opportunity and to listen to what she's got to say. You know what I mean? That in itself is very interesting, because we don't all know, but apparently, like in Pacific Island cultures, chiefs, elites, had multiple wives, bro. And I'm pretty sure Kamehameha, that's going to come up later, ends up with multiple wives. So I'm more interested, not what she said, because he's quite wise himself, but I'm more interested in his relationship with women. And this goes for all the chiefs in this whole program in Chief of War, purely from a historical point of view, just to learn, like, did all men have multiple wives? Is it only because of the introduction of Balangis and Yesu that we became monogamous? Is that the word? We became just one wife. I want that to be explored. I want to see, and we see some infidelity stuff with Guyana's wife as well, which kind of understand. It's been fucking ages. We don't know what's happened to Guyana, so all right, I'll look after his old what's his name? Old Bob's character. Namake goes in for the kill. But it was her that kind of invited after saying no at the start. But anyway, I'm kind of moving on. But yeah, sorry. And just to sum up, I thought it was interesting on that mountaintop. Yeah, one that she's given advice and he's listening to it. But I also want that to be explored, hopefully, a bit more with this men's relationship with women, and how was it? And are you allowed more than one wife? Sorry, also, I don't know if that answered the question. I kind of ranted there a bit.
No, it's all good, because the influence of the invaders, or the Balangis, the influence of the missionaries that will come later on, the influence of the Balangi, it's already there on the island. They're already learning English, the kids and all that. He's teaching them, right, and sort of bringing his culture to them, like saying, man, the women in my culture don't do this, and it's going to change everything when everyone comes to the shore. But yeah, man, I find that interesting as well, like the influence of outsiders coming into the islands and the cultures merging and overtaking and all that kind of stuff. So Yeah, that's interesting.
That Palangi character, I find it interesting that he's there in Hawaii because it was the Hawaiian island that killed Cook, right? So Cook was killed by the Hawaiians, and so I'm like, is this historical, or is he just a plot device to advance those characters left behind by Jason Momoa on the islands, learning English, learning a bit more about the culture of the Europeans that this guy's from, and then he's there as to sort of compare differences, right? And so I touched on it, like, the women all around the world subservient, whereas here in Hawaii it's a little bit different. So that whole scene where Kahumanu's up the top and they're by that big ass slab of rock. That rock I did a little bit of research. It's called the Naha Stone. And apparently the legend was anyone who could flip that Naha Stone over is going to be the one to unite the Hawaiian Islands. And apparently Kamehameha had already done that. So he's already got this sort of legend behind him that he flipped the rock. And they even sort of talk about it in the scene where he's sort of moving around and he's like, I couldn't even try to lift this rock if I wanted to. And the day that everyone saw me lift the rock there was an earthquake or something, or the earth moved, and then he just happened to be there and helped the rock flip over when the earth was already moving underneath it. So he's already got this like King Arthur like origin story, where King Arthur pulls the sword out of the stone, and then he's the king. Kamehameha's got this Naha Stone, and he flips it over, and everyone's like, Sale, this guy, he's the man. And so that just adds to his legend, right? He's born under Halley's Comet. He's got the strength to lift these rocks and hold his breath for ages like Aquaman. He's got the wisdom. He's got the measured approach. He's very regal. He's respectful. He walks away with the god of war, not fefevale, like, I'm running away from Cliff Corridus, but he walks away, proudly, like, nah, man, I'm honoring my uncle and your dad. So, yeah, sweet. If you want it, come get it. We'll battle later. And now we get this story where he's up the top with Kaumanu talking about it. And that's why you're the guy, because you've got this legendary story that talks about you flipping the rock over. So he's got this whole aura about him, Kamehameha. And like I said a couple of episodes ago, or maybe it was the last one, where the first two episodes were about building up the mana of Jason Momoa's character. He's the chief of war. He's what the whole sort of series is about. But now we've got this massive shift where we're now building up the mana and we're giving props to Kamehameha, and rightly so, because he's the guy, right? Stace, you and me talked about it last week, where this is the main character guy. Kamehameha is the one who we all know now unifies Hawaii. It's interesting to see the story play out. But in the last two episodes, yes, Jason Momoa's been doing stuff, but the mana of the last couple of episodes has all been around Kamehameha and what he's been doing. So I like that they've been fleshing out his character and they've been giving him all these like prophetic things and, the explanations to why he's the king. Not only did was he born when there was a comet flying over, and he's got that mana. Not only is he strong, can hold his breath in the water, not only is he wise, but now he's flipped this rock over that people say, oh my goodness, it's a feat that no one else has ever done before or has done after he's done it, right? So now we've got this real build-up of Kamehameha being the man. And so, like Sai touched on before, we've got a clear two baddies and a clear two good guys. And so it'd be really cool to see how this conflict that's coming up is going to play out, because you can see it all being set up now. So, yeah, man, looking forward to it. It's going good. These episodes have been really good.
Yeah, the stakes are high. Hey, the stakes are high because you got looming over the horizon. There's the coming colonization, right? And it's not going to help if your islands are fighting each other. So we're gearing up to these wars happening on the islands now for unification. That needs to come quick because colonization is on the way. But the islanders don't know what is going to come, right? So yeah, so that's another thing that's interesting too. Like Man, imagine all those warriors that have died. If they had those warriors when when those ships come, man, it will be a different story. But it is what it is. So speaking of Kayana, we go over to where he is, and it's probably the weakest part of the episode now, just because we're wrapping up what happened in the last episode. But Kayana's like on the hunt for his friend, for Tony. He's sort of like getting thrown into the slave trade, so he has to. There's sort of like it's a race against time, because his captain say, "Man, our ship is leaving. You're causing all this trouble. All the cops are looking for you. They're gonna take my ship and take everything on board. So we're out of here. You better be on the ship." But he goes, "Nah, I have to go and find my friend."
Bro, I actually liked it. That was my favorite part because yeah, the Kayana scene, like his I like to know about his travels abroad, bro. I find that's fucking awesome, bro. To have, he's got to be. I mean, we know of Tupaia, who showed Captain Cook the way, but man, Kayana must be one of the early guys. You know, who else left the shores of their own islands and went abroad? And bro, I just found out now, Bob, that where they are, that's modern day Philippines, right? When we first started getting together and started doing this podcast, I just Wikipedia a little bit about him, so I knew he went on his travels. I knew he went China, Philippines, up to Alaska. But is this part with the Maoli John? John? Is it Tony? Is that real, or is that just the extra little cheese on top just to give it some spice? Because that was some mean shit for him to go and rescue that guy. Hey, and I can see why he did it. You know, this guy Tony, they formed a bond. He's taught him Englishy, but really, what really got me was his reaction to seeing the poor Filipinos with the pepe and that, you know, being set up ready for the fucking slave trade. His reaction was, you could see him turn like, what the fuck kind of people do this? Which I find very interesting as well, because coming from a warfare type, warrior type culture, did Hawaiians not do that? Did ancient Polynesians, did they not do that? You know, like capture people and put them into laborers trade? Maybe not. Maybe not to that extent. Maybe that's why he freaked out. Like, not freaked out, but you could just see he was like, and you know, he didn't even fucking have to save them, bro. But he saved them, and then he went on some kind of Arnold Schwarzenegger 80s movie rampage. Like he did in Commando, to save his daughter and killed everyone in sight on the way. You know, and rescued all these poor people ready for the slave trade. So that was my favorite part of the movie, and also like I like that explored a bit more, like what he done on his travels. Unfortunately, we'll probably see the last of it. Hopefully not, because he's on his way back, unless they pull out another dramatic era storyline on the boat. But yeah, I wanted to know whether this character, the Maolis, actually, I better correct myself. This Tamaoli, because I recall a couple of years ago I used that term Maoli on 1-3 Footy Show, and some of these Karens out there gave me shit from. So Tamaoli, whether this guy Tony is real, and whether the lady, the Hawaiian lady, whether her story, her character's real, because she goes a long way to helping Kayana. Hey. And, you know, Kayana's going to return with guns and this worldly view, but these two main characters in the movie went to a long way of instilling that in him, eh? So, like, I'd like to know, maybe I try not to do research, because I want to, doing this program with you guys, I want to just judge it on the merits of watching the show without having any of this extra knowledge that, you know, can kind of cloud the judgment of the actual program. But yeah, I love that whole thing, bro. Him going to rescue Chenny and this whole slave trade thing, this reaction from it, and like, man, I'm just guessing here, but man, I'm sure we did that shit, man. Maoris did that shit. Maoris were cutting people's heads off, bro, capturing prisoners and making, maybe not trading slaves in that kind of way on the boats going to fucking faraway lands, but yeah, really interesting, bro.
I think just to touch on Sai's point about the slaves, I don't think we traded in slaves, but I know we took slaves from the tribes that we conquered or from the villages that we conquered. And that was probably common practice across the Pacific. I know it was common here in New Zealand with Maori tribes, because they would take like some of the people that were still alive and use them as slaves, and then they'd sometimes kill them and eat them. So that was common here in New Zealand. Not everywhere, but it was definitely common in the Pacific. I'm pretty sure there were lots of Samoans that were eaten by Tongans over hundreds of years back in the days when Samoans were like slaves to the Tongan royalty system or whatever was happening at that time. But I thought it was good that whole sort of tying off of where Guyana was. It also brought a bit of realism back to, I felt like Guyana's character, and when he first came to the city, was too like playing it cool, like someone who had already seen big, massive ports and castles and buildings. And like, I was thinking, shouldn't this guy's muckers be bulging out of his head? Like, suddenly I come from grass huts and leaves, thatched roofs, and now what is this? It's concrete. It's stone. Stone. What? And I thought this episode brought a bit more realism to him. He's seeing like the slave trade, and he's going, why are these people here? Why are they locked up? That's a bit more realistic for someone who's not Masangi to that sort of stuff, right? But what these last two episodes highlight for me is the makwa disgusting yucky filth that these colonizers live in, So they come and say that we're all great and we've got all these, but we all know that they just brought disease and rats and shit that just killed all the people in the islands, right? And you see it in this port, like Spanish East India, this port that's in Philippines. It's yuck, it's dirty, it's filthy. They just go into that like bar, and you've got all those whores that are sort of walking around, like prostituting themselves out, and they're just having sex on the table and shit. And it's like, hey, there's not even in rooms or anything like that. Is this really what it was like in those ports back in those days? There's nothing civilized or advanced about this culture. The one thing I did get vibes from was like real Assassin's Creed type vibes when these Spanish soldiers are running around trying to find Guyana after he kingas that slave trader dude, and he's running off, and you've got all these Spanish soldiers. It reminded me of the Assassin's Creed where Connor, the Inkia guy, where he's just walking around, and whenever he kills someone, and then all those Spanish soldiers go and try and run after you to arrest you or to fasuki you, and you've got to go and hide or jump into the water and swim away until the alert levels go down. That's what I was thinking. And then when they Vi finds him back at her place, I was like, these Spanish are Gaia. They know that there's only one other savage that lives in this port town. That's the lady, and they haven't checked out her place for Guyana hiding around in the shadows there. I was like, God, Gaia in the Spanish, man. These guys are useless. And then for them to burn down that whole building and still manage to sneak out, yeah, I don't know. That was all a bit meh. It was a bit too fantastical for me that this like native Hawaiian guy, as great as he was in Hawaii with his native weaponry, with bare hands, he just manhandles and strangles guys and manages to escape all the way back to where the Va'a's just conveniently waiting for him. That for me, I thought was a bit it's a bit eats that whole scene. But they've got their weapons now. They're going back. Vi, she wants to start that trade up so that she can get ahead and so that our people can profit from it. But like Stace touched on last week, it's like, man, that sandalwood trade will start like this. Then 5,000 other ships and palangis are going to come until that whole natural resource is just going to get smashed and there's no more resource. That's what we've seen with colonization in all of these Pacific Islanders. They start up something and then they just come, they ask for this much and then they take the whole thing. They give you a treaty in New Zealand and then they take everything else and they make up laws to take all the rest and to disadvantage the indigenous population. We see it here in New Zealand. We see it all across Pacific. So that, good to see Jason Momoa's character. Apparently, it's historically correct that he did all of that sort of stuff. But characters like Vi and I think Tony are all just sort of plot devices to. Otherwise, he wouldn't have anything to do and probably wouldn't have any cool stories to tell. But now he's on the way back, and the next sort of coming episodes is what I want to see. Is like, what are you gonna do now? You've got Kahikili still running around. You got your brother who's now macking your wife, bro. That whole family thing is gonna be interesting. But yeah, it was cool. It was a good way to finish the episode.
Good point about Zamboanga. Is it called that port? Like turning into like a whole way, like Spalangis, man. That dirty, man. Try to call us savages, Okay, you treat your places. It reminds me of the story. I'll tell you guys the story. So me and Eyes, we were going to town. I think we were going to baseball. We got out of the cab. We went down this alleyway. The alleyways in town to go for a piss. And as we were taking a piss, this guy comes up behind us and sits alongside us, pulls down his pants, and starts doing the shit. A Balangi guy. And we were looking and go, hey, what the fuck? So we were all walking out. We were like disgusted. Azai goes, Balangis, still barbarians. I was just cracking up laughing.
That's yuck.
Yuck, man.
Yuck.
The last bit of the episode, we come to Kupuoi, is Keanu's wife and his brother, Namake. They're getting a bit close, and then you see at the end, he comes to her tent and they have a kiss, and then the credits roll. So, some love triangle going on there. We talked about adding to the story, what's going to happen. Ooh, that's a bit, wonder what's going to happen there. Which brings me to the end of the episode. So, any predictions for the next episode? Just a quick, what you think is going to happen? Start with you, Bob.
I think there's going to be definitely some sort of ramifications from his brother hooking up with his missus. Like, I don't know whether TK's character Namake is going to back away from it. He's probably going to think, Sully, you were gone for ages and she's mine now. Because apparently he loved her anyway before when Guyana was there, So it's like, I don't know. He doesn't look like someone that's going to, give up that easily. I reckon it's going to play out like how Sai was talking about. Kamehameha is going to be up against his cousin Gilwa, and then Guyana's going to come back, and the conflict he's got is with Kaikili. But Namake is this like unknown sort of quantity to that whole story, because how's he trying to focus on getting rid of Kaikili if he's not sure that his brothers have got his back, right? Because it's like, Saleh, how could you think that I was dead? Because he's got this other brother with the big hair, Nahi, who still thinks and believes that Saleh, Guyana's going to come back wherever he is, even after all this time sort of happened. But you got Namake, who's all this time's happened, but Saleh, your turtle necklace is not enough. He's already, I'll go get you some more for dinner later on. The man's out there catching fish. I was like, Saleh, he's making moves, man. Like they're practically courting unofficially, and it's real informal. So, TK, mate, like just knowing him in real life, like I see him all the time at my my moko girl's kohanga, and then how he is in real life when you've seen him on stuff on TV. So like, he gives me those cheese vibes, like so player, like he's got real player vibes, and he's probably not like he's not really. He's a loving family man, but he gives real player vibes just because the dude's like, you know, that's the vibe I get. So there'll be a real interesting to come. Things to happen. I just wanted to touch on like the whole introduction of all the Hawaiian gods and stuff. I think all of that stuff that happened at the beginning, it goes towards the authenticity of Chief of War, and I really like that they keep bringing in these legends like the Rock that Kamehameha flipped over, like the introduction of those Tiki, the god of war, and you know I was doing, who are the Hawaiian gods? The Hawaiian gods sound exactly like the Maoli gods. But they've got four main ones. Kane, the god of creation and sky. Kanaloa, god of the ocean. Ku, the god of war. And Lono, the god of peace. And like it's very similar to Maoli. Rongo is the god of peace in Maoli. And Tumatawinga, or Ku, for the god of war. And Kanaloa, same as Tangaloa, Kangaloa. Kane, Tane, like all across the Pacific, we've got very similar gods that we sort of worship before the missionaries came. Like it's all real common amongst all the Pacific Islands. So I just really like that aspect of Chief of War, how they keep touching on those things and introducing people to that part of the Hawaiian culture that keeps it really authentic. So yeah, lots of conflict to come ahead, man, and I'm here for it.
Nice. How about you, Si? What are you expecting to happen next episode? Or what would you like to happen? Or what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, Bob touched on it with Namake's hitting on her wife, because we see it earlier on when he gets the eater, and then he's like, "I bought you some fish." Shit, man, that's like some chocolate and flowers someone else's king, But you can also understand it's been a year, and you know, ain't no text or email, so you know, obviously this guy's gone disappearing. He's dead. You can, and you know when you can kind of understand Namake where he's coming from, his thought process, and his wife, who's tried so hard for a whole year, and then we see at the end of the episode, it's almost like a moku arafaku, like, damn man, you bitch, man. Where's the other brother? I don't know if it's the brother or a mate. Nahi. He believes, bro. He's got Guyana's back from the start. So we see these two dudes, the real opposite. Hey, one guy's a fear man guy, and the other guy's like, shit, man, Guyana's coming back, you fucking dirty bastard. But why I bring it up? Because I want these guys need to be united because Guyana's got a small little army, man, just him and his two bros. So how the hell he's going to go up against Jake with the three of them, even though they're armed? So, you know, he's going to be the first guy to introduce, Balangi's already introduced it, but in warfare, intertribal warfare, now he's got the upper hand. So, like, my thing is, there's going to be some tag team action happening with Kamehameha. And I don't know whether they know each other and, you know, what the story behind that. And like I said earlier, I try not to read into any of that background with Kamehameha's life and all of that. But I feel that's happening, bro. Like, unless it's going to be some Hollywood bullshit. But, you know, Guyana and a fractured two teammates. The Survivor Series is not going to happen. It was 3 against fucking all Kaikili's men. Yeah, I'm hoping that their riff's going to be strong. And Guyana, I feel like he's not going to be, he'll be bothered by it. But I think there's more important shit to take care of, business to take care of before he, you know, handles his wife. That's what I'm hoping. And I hope that, even though I said I want to know more about what's happened on that ship, but maybe we can, like, bring some fucking tribal warfare now. I kind of miss it because we've had, like, 3 episodes of setting shit up. So I want to see some fungas and against clubs. Because this is the period, in the islands. In Aotearoa, we see that happen. In Samoa, where now if I can compare it to Maori, now we've seen some honeheke shit, like your tribe's got spears and shit. You haven't met the Balangi man. Well, Honeheke's already fucking done his trading, and now he's got kafangas. Same thing with Guyana, man. So, yeah, cool times ahead, bro. I'll be glued to it regardless.
Yeah, it's the technology that's gonna win the war now, and Kayana's got all the rifles now, all the muskets. He's got all the guns. So whoever he lines with, whatever war they go, they're gonna win it. You know, so yeah. I think that's what's gonna happen there. There's a recurring theme here going on, like in-house. You gotta have your in-house real tie there. You can't have any division within your tribe, otherwise it's gonna get fucked up, and there'll be no unification.
I just wanted to add that, I spoke last week about the time skip and how realistic it was, because Guyana's been away for a year and it takes that long to travel around a ship. And then how we were talking about, did it really take that long for Kahekili to kill that one chief? We went on this rampage in the first 2 episodes, and then it's like, he's still super evil. He still wants to kill all the royal bloodline. But now it's like, no, it doesn't match up, because a whole year's gone past, or a year and a half, however long Kayana's been away. But you're telling me that Kahekili's only killed that one chief, and now he's stopped? It's like, doesn't match up. It matches up to make Jason Momoa come back, but then, is that internal conflict going to happen, and happen quickly on the Hawaiian Islands before Jason Momoa and his guns arrive? Or is he going to get there miraculously in time for this conflict to happen? Like, I want to see how that sort of pans out, because, it's already happened in the last episode. It's all been set up. So now it's like, well, we can't really be expecting Jason Momoa and all these whangas to turn up on the doorstep of Hawaii when it took him a whole year to travel to Alaska and back. And it's like, come on, mate. That would be makwa bullshiki if in the next episode you see Jason Momoa on the ship at the front of it like Titanic holding his whanga. It's like, come on, mate. These guys have got a whole year to wait for you to come back. They probably would have killed each other by then. So that's where the whole pacing for me is a bit off. It's like, because you can understand the time skip and how far it is away he is, because he's traveling by a ship that takes months to go anywhere. But I don't. It doesn't reconcile. It doesn't take months for evil Kahekili to travel across to the other islands when it only took them a few hours in the first episode to go from Oahu to Maui. So that's where the things gets a bit funky for me. It's like, storytelling's great, but come on, man, make the shit believable. So I want that conflict between Kamehameha and his cousin to already be sort of resolved by the time Jason Momoa comes back.
Actually, the quick Google search: how the distance to sail from Philippines to Honolulu? 5 to 7 weeks.
Everyone will be dead in 7 weeks. Was this based on 1800s calculations?
It's current day.
Yeah, see,
it's 7 weeks.
So that's a year on a ship like the Endeavour.
Nice. So, any last words?
That was a good. That was a good point, Bobby. I haven't looked at that, but I just want to acknowledge that. Really what the whole theme of this is like the use of religion. And, it wasn't called religion, but it is religion. How we Polynesians had their gods. But, like, how an individual can use religion against, as a reason, a thirst for power, you know what I mean? But we see the odd character stand up to it, like we were talking about Tim, and how the other fella was going, that's not the prophecies. But this is just mankind, man. Any civilization, any era, bro. We see it today. We see it today with in the Middle East. We see it economically happening. The thirst for power, and in today's term, that's money. We're seeing it. Our ancestors did it also. But we see these flowers of superheroes in history come through and stand up and have a true alofa, true aroha for their people, and use religion for the good instead of for individual thirst for power. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, bro, it's cool for this historical elements, but the basis of it is still good versus evil. We see it in movies and we see it in the series, bro.
Nice. Thanks, boys. Yeah, that pretty much wraps up this episode 4 of Chief of War. Yeah, man, thanks, boys, for jumping on. It's good to talk about this TV show. It's been a mean TV series in a long time coming too. Everyone out there, tune in to or like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, the WesWes Movies and TV, and follow us on TikTok and Instagram, WesWes Movies and TV. Thanks, boys, again for jumping on. See you guys next episode next week. We'll do it again. Have a good week.
Aloha.
My boys.